Now, remember which card you picked. I bet you picked this one. The following is based on a true story.
Ellie and Michelle have been close friends for years. They'd grown up together in a small city about an hour away from London. Ellie was the quieter of the two. She'd always been massively creative and didn't care much for people. In her mind, creativity, art, music, nature, animals and seeing the beauty in things was far more important to her than talking about mundane teenage topics. Most of her female friends were into gossip, makeup, shoes and boys. Most of the boys were either too shy to talk to her or just wanted other things instead. Either way, none of this interested Ellie. She found herself feeling like an outsider and spent a lot of time alone. People were draining. Michelle, on the other hand, was more outgoing, friendly, open-minded, and was one of the easiest people to get along with. She also had a passion for art and seeing the beauty in things. Ever since they were young, she'd always taken Ellie under her wing and treated her like the twin sister she'd never had. Their similar interests and the contrast in personalities had kept them friends for all this time. It had been almost a decade since their school years, but Michelle and Ellie still stayed good friends. One night, Ellie was woken up when her phone started ringing. Feeling puzzled and a little annoyed, she glanced at the caller ID and realized it must be something important.
Michelle?
She said sleepily.
It's my dad. He's gone. Sorry, it was just a shock. I just needed to talk to someone.
Michelle glanced at the clock. 2:16 a.m. Her mind was foggy, and she didn't realize how quickly time had passed.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how late it is. I didn't mean to wake you. Can we talk tomorrow?
Of course. And if there's anything you need help with, let me know, okay?
Weeks went by, and it turned out that there was something Michelle needed help with. She'd been tasked with the chore of clearing out her father's house. Ellie agreed to help her clear it, not realizing just how much of a task this would be. The house was old and musty. Ellie felt like she'd gone back in time to the 60s, or at least what she thought a house in the 60s would look like. You know the type. Old peeling wallpaper, old carpet that was long overdue a change, and those flowery patterned rugs in every room. The ones she'd only ever seen in her grandparents' house. The worst part, though, Michelle's father was a massive hoarder. Now, this didn't appear to be too bad of a problem downstairs. The walls were packed with shelves and shelves of dusty old books, VHS videos, CDs, and even vinyl records, right from the floor to the ceiling in some areas. There was an old grandfather clock ticking away in the corner of the room, next to a wooden chess game that seemed to have been abandoned midway through, a long time ago, judging by the coats of dust covering it. Books were spread open, scattered all over the floor, some with torn out pages. Ellie crouched down and started closing a few of them, glancing at all the titles. The History of Britain, How to Build Your First Marionette, Saturnalia, Now and Then, How to Converse with the Dead, Seeking the Truth, Mind Control Experiments, A Circle of Triangles, and 1 + 1 = 7. Now, Ellie hadn't seen Michelle's father for a few good years now, but she never remembered anything being like this. The scene in front of her eyes made her think that he'd turned crazy towards the end, possibly after he'd lost his wife. Ellie assumed in her head, trying to work it all out. A wave of sadness came over her.
Poor guy.
She thought to herself. Although the place was packed full of furniture and items, it was deathly quiet, except for the faint ticking of the old clock in the corner.
It doesn't seem too bad. We'll get there, don't worry.
Ellie said, leaving the books and standing to face Michelle. Michelle laughed.
Just wait, you haven't seen upstairs yet.
She started leading the way upstairs, and Ellie followed her. Along the wall on the stairway, quite high up, there was a long shelf. Many porcelain dolls sat lined up along this shelf with their legs dangling off the edge.
Those dolls are so creepy,
Ellie said, looking up. It was a 2-bedroom house. The master bedroom was cluttered with stuff, but other than that, it was pretty normal. It seemed that he kept all of his wife's belongings, even after losing her a few years earlier. The 2nd bedroom was locked. In between the 2 doors was a 3rd door. Michelle slowly opened it, to be greeted with a pile of stuff avalanching out. It was a walk-in cupboard that was packed from floor to ceiling with random stuff. A black cat darted across the landing and down the stairs. Ellie jumped.
Oh, don't worry, that's just Polly. The noise must have startled her. I don't know where she was hiding, though.
Michelle quickly closed the door before anything else came out. Although the house had been vacant for a few weeks now, Michelle had still been popping in to feed and take care of the cat while she was trying to find a good home for her.
I just don't know where to start.
She sighed.
Do you know what's in your old bedroom?
Ellie asked, curious to know, but also dreading the answer. There was more than enough stuff to clear already.
Let me get the key, I'll show you.
Michelle dashed into the master bedroom, over to a chest of drawers. She opened the 3rd drawer down and removed a small key from the left-hand corner. Ellie didn't know what to think when she saw what was in the 2nd bedroom. The room was packed full of porcelain dolls. They were everywhere, all different-looking ones sitting on different shelves, a massive pile of them on top of the wardrobe, and a display cabinet packed full of them, inside and on top. Some were placed around the edges of the room, some were on a chair, and some were even placed neatly on the bed. Ellie remembered this room to be Michelle's old bedroom, but it was now a guest room. She couldn't imagine them having many guests, or at least none that would want to return.
Wow. Your parents must have really loved those dolls.
Ellie said.
Yep, well, you know my family is all a little strange, but that's the best way to be, right?
Ellie didn't remember there being so many dolls. Truth is, Michelle didn't really know why her father had suddenly started filling up the house with these dolls. She'd asked him about it before, and he just told her that he does it for her mother, as her mum used to love collecting them. Michelle found the idea to be pretty cute, and just left him to it. If it made him happy, she didn't want to ruin that, but well, he would often tell her stories about the dolls, describing their personalities and telling her stories about their past lives. Michelle found it to be an interesting change from the normal conversations she was used to in life.
I actually find it really interesting, the lore on porcelain dolls, although I'm not sure if I believe it or not.
Why?
Ellie asked.
Well, they say to look carefully at the dolls and really study them. You can get a rough idea of the year the doll was made just by the attention to detail and the type of clothes they wear. Most are from the 1800s or early 1900s, but there are some that are way older than that, and some that are much younger. Generally, you can tell if a doll is mass-produced by the build quality and if there are any signs of either an artist's signature or a company logo. If the dolls have neither and are old-fashioned in detail, they may contain spirits.
Okay, if you say so.
Ellie replied.
I'm not joking. The really old ones used to be made to look like their owners and were used as empty vessels for them if they died young. Anyway, I'll go make us some coffee and get the bags.
Michelle said before heading back downstairs. Ellie walked into the room, her eyes skimming past the many gazes of the porcelain dolls. She carefully picked up the dolls that were occupying the seat and placed them on the bed. She sat in the seat, feeling pretty awkward and not really knowing what to do with herself. The awkwardness was short-lived when she finally realized just how much beauty she was surrounded by. Each and every single one of the dolls was incredibly detailed and stunningly beautiful. Ellie got up and walked over to the bunch of dolls that were sitting on top of a chest of drawers. Something drew her towards those particular ones. She carefully studied each doll, looking at the detail in their faces, the beautiful dresses and the clothes they were wearing, and checking their name tags. Sally, Jemima, Eric, Kimberly, Lizzie. As Ellie came to the last doll sitting on the chest of drawers, her gaze was drawn downwards to the side of the chest. The doll was lying on the floor, face down. It must have fallen off the chest of drawers and been forgotten there for a while. Ellie picked the doll up, checking that it was okay and wasn't broken. This was the most beautiful doll she'd ever seen, she thought to herself.
Kyra,
she said, looking at the name tag. Kyra had bright aqua eyes that were mesmerizing. Her long shiny hair was finished with subtle curls and a red ribbon tied on her right side. She wore a red and blue checkered dress, not as glamorous as most of the other dolls' dresses, but Ellie liked it that way. She was just perfect as she was. Little blue shoes and a cute little teddy bear, which she held in her right hand, completing her look.
I'll put your coffee down over here,
said Michelle, returning to the room.
Thanks,
said Ellie, turning to face her, doll still in hand.
Hey, do you mind if I keep this one?
If you want any of these, help yourself. I'm just going to sell them otherwise,
Michelle replied.
Nah, just the one. She was on the floor, so I felt bad for her,
Ellie said, jokingly.
She kind of looks like you. Different eye colour, but I can see it,
Michelle said, studying the doll.
Yeah, whatever,
Ellie said as she picked up a bag and carefully started packing the dolls inside. A wave of happiness spread over Ellie. She didn't know why she was so drawn to this doll. She hadn't had any dolls since she was a small child and hadn't seen the appeal of collecting the porcelain ones. If anything, she found them to be freaky. Just like a pretty piece of artwork on the wall, a detailed sculpture or an ornament on the side. Kyra would have a place in her home as something beautiful to look at. A couple of hours later, 117 dolls from all throughout the house were placed in large bags and rucksacks. They were transported from Michelle's parents' house to her house. It took 3 trips back and forth before they were all finally removed. Michelle and Ellie got used to the weird looks they got on the multiple bus journeys. Michelle and Ellie spent the rest of the evening just chilling, watching random videos, chatting and drinking. A few hours later, when the wine ran out, Ellie decided to get the bus back home. As soon as Ellie entered the house, she was usually greeted by happy meows and purrs from their 2 pet cats. But this time, no. She was greeted by hissing and growls.
It's okay, guys. It's me,
she said, realizing it was quite late and assuming she must have either smelt like Polly, the black cat that was at Michelle's old house, or like she'd overdone the wine, or both. Either way, she was tired, so she started getting ready for bed. She couldn't seem to get to sleep for some reason, even though it was almost 2 o'clock. The cats were restless. She heard hissing again. She turned on the light to check what was up. Both cats were clawing and growling at the bag she brought back with her. Ellie unzipped the bag, revealing the doll. Both cats seemed to calm down after that. Well, they were just curious to see what was inside, Ellie assumed. Ellie picked out the doll and walked into the kitchen to get some water. She placed the doll on the worktop and downed a glass of water as she was starting to feel a hangover coming. Ellie went back to bed and tried to get to sleep before the imminent headache and nausea. She managed to drift off to sleep when, suddenly, she was awoken by a loud smash. followed by hissing and growling coming from the kitchen. She stumbled out of bed, pretty angry by now. She shouted to her cats, assuming they'd knocked Kyra off the kitchen worktop and was preparing to clean up a lot of mess. Well, the cats scampered out of the kitchen. They knew they weren't supposed to be on the worktops. Ellie switched on the lights, only to find that it was the water glass which she'd used earlier that was smashed, not Kyra. Ellie was relieved. She cleared up the mess and took Kyra from the kitchen and brought her into the bedroom. That way, the cats would stop being freaked. Plus, if they decided to hiss any more, Ellie would be able to tell them off more easily. For the rest of the night, the cats were quiet. Everything was peaceful. It was nice. Ellie drifted off back to sleep. She managed to get a little sleep before waking up again, this time to a strange, sweet humming. She sat up. The room was dark, but Ellie's night vision was good. She could just about make out the silhouette of Kyra sitting on the window ledge, legs hanging off the edge. How did she get there?
Hey there, will you be my friend?
Ellie heard, followed by a creepy laugh. Ellie pinched herself. She wasn't dreaming. She walked over to the window ledge and picked the doll up. The doll was inanimate. What am I going crazy? Ellie thought. Does the doll talk? She turned on the bedside lamp and studied the doll a bit more. Under Kyra's dress, she found a rusty wind-up key. That's why, she thought, feeling somewhat relieved. She placed Kyra back on the windowsill, turned off the lamp, and shut her eyes again.
Hey there, will you be my friend? You're the best.
Ellie heard again.
Hey there, I'm so lonely. Wanna play?
Ellie pulled the covers over her head and tried to block out the noise. She thought the doll would run out of juice soon, although it was a surprise Kyra had any juice to begin with, as Ellie had never turned the wind-up key.
I love you.
If I just ignore it, it'll go away, Ellie thought,
Shall
not really caring about anything anymore and not even knowing if she was awake or dreaming,
Will
the
you
alcohol still buzzing
be my
around her
friend?
system. The next morning, Ellie's head was throbbing. Oh, I have to stop drinking, she thought. She crawled out of bed, woke herself up and made herself a coffee. She felt so rough that even after finishing her coffee, she still felt like a zombie. She'd barely got any sleep at all. She thought back to last night. It was all because of that stupid doll, she thought to herself. She went back to the bedroom, grabbed Kyra from the windowsill, and took her into the lounge.
This will be your new home from now on,
She said, unlocking the door to an old cupboard and locking Kyra inside. Out of the 117 dolls, Ellie thought, one was quite enough. She could only hope that Michelle had had a better night than she did.